The Electoral College has been used to elect presidents dating back to the 1700s. It was created by the framers of the Constitution because they believed this system would hold fair elections and cause little ruckus with the American people. Little did they know it would be such a controversial issue, leading to questions regarding whether the Electoral College is the correct way to determine who America's leaders should be. Presidential elections should be determined by national popular vote. My main points I will be talking to you about today are the history of the Electoral College and its deficiencies, the closeness of presidential elections, the Gore versus Bush election, and either a two-step solution or a national popular vote could fix the problems of the Electoral College. I will start off by giving you a few reasons why the United States used the Electoral College and explain its deficiencies. The history of the Electoral College and its deficiencies. Jonathan Turley, author of the article "And the Electoral College," provides a brief history on the Electoral College. He states that presidents are elected by 538 electoral votes distributed between all 50 states depending on their size. The biggest reason the Electoral College was created by the framers was that they thought it would be fair to each state to have a set amount of votes to use to elect presidents. They thought there would be less protest with such a structured system. James Madison also agreed to this and added if there was a popular vote, the North and South would vote strictly for their candidate because of the slavery issue. But now that there is no more slavery, the Electoral College still exists. Some of the flaws of the Electoral College include that 15 presidents have been elected with less than 50% of the popular vote. 3 of these presidents, Grover Cleveland, Woodrow Wilson, and Bill Clinton, were elected this way in 2 separate elections. Jack Rokoff makes another good point on the Electoral College's flaws. According to Jack Rokoff in the article "Why Do We Still Let the Electoral College Pick Our Presidents by Targeted News Service," states that, "I believe the existing system has 2 fundamental, I wish I could say fatal flaws. One is that it violates the one person, one vote rule, which should be the proper rule of modern democracy, because the additions of 2 electors to each state for its senators produces significant distortions in how much an individual vote is worth from state to state. The second problem is the whole battleground state issue. Once we're past the primaries, presidential elections are wholly preoccupied with the relatively small number of states that are actually competitive. But their competitiveness is just a demographic accident. There's nothing special about them except that their populations happen to be fairly evenly divided from a sociological standpoint." That is a brief history of why the United States uses the Electoral College and the deficiencies it has. Because of these deficiencies, it is evident that there needs to be a change to national popular vote. I will now go on to explain how one state can swing an election and why candidates spend more time in some states compared to others. The closeness of presidential elections. Lewis H. Lapham, author of The Electoral College Should Be Abolished from the book Our American Elections Fair, states that the voter ratio of people to electoral votes between Wyoming and California is about 1 to 6. This proves that candidates spend more time in smaller states like Wyoming because the votes are harder to accumulate. Acquiring electoral votes from smaller states are important in these close elections. The Herald Tribune states that in 2004, George W. Bush won the popular vote by 31.5 million votes. These votes helped him win the Electoral College and make him president. But if John Kerry would have won more votes in the state of Ohio, he would have taken the state, had more total electoral votes, and would have won the election. The closeness of presidential elections is why candidates choose to spend more time in some states compared to others, and how one state can swing an election. Now I'll talk a little bit about the 2000 election between George W. Bush and Al Gore, and how Bush won the election and what states each of them spent the most time in. Election of Gore versus Bush. The 2000 election was one of the most disputed elections in United States history. Whoever won the state of Florida was going to win the election. Lewis H. Lapham again states that on November 7, 2000, nearly 3 million people in Florida voted for Vice President Al Gore. But because Governor George W. Bush received popularity by a disputed margin of 537 votes, the Electoral College rewarded him every vote cast for Gore, thus one more than the requisite majority of 270 in the Electoral College. Michael Cass, the author of Gore Calls for Ending Electoral Vote System 12 Years After, states that some ballots in Florida were electronic. There are rumors that some votes weren't counted correctly or not even submitted because of possible glitches in the ballots. so who honestly knows who really won the 2000 election? An election shouldn't be determined on who wins a certain state because errors like these could change who really won that state and the election. This election also displayed proof of disenfranchised voters. Bush and Gore barely visited the states Texas, New York, and California. This is because both candidates knew that Bush would win Texas, a Republican-dominated state, and Gore would win New York and California, both Democrat-dominated states. Another 18 states weren't visited because of the same reason. Voters have no point in voting for the opposing party candidate of either a Republican or Democrat-dominated state because their vote probably won't count anyway. Because of this reason, Gore wants the Electoral College abolished. He says, "I think our country would be stronger and a better fit if it went according to a national popular vote." That was a description of the 2000 election between Bush and Gore and how Bush won the election. Problems occurred in the election of Gore versus Bush are why presidential elections should be determined by national popular vote. Finally, I will say a couple of solutions on how to fix the Electoral College or abolish it altogether. Either a two-step solution or a national popular vote could fix the problems of the Electoral College. According to the article Abolish the Electoral College from the Herald Tribune 2009, states that two steps would help end the inconsistencies and mitigate the exaggerations of the Electoral College and the current practices in most states. Could either 1. Amend the Constitution to eliminate the use of electors, chosen and directed by states, in favor of a simple system that results in election of president based on a nationwide popular vote. Or 2. If the Electoral College remains intact, state legislators should get rid of winner-take-all pledges and practices. Two other options, which would keep the Electoral College but modify it, are keeping the Electoral College or the electoral votes in each state, but split the votes up by a percentage of the popular vote each candidate wins. Or you could split up the electoral votes by district like they do in Maine and Nebraska now. Either a two-step system or a national popular vote could fix the problems of the Electoral College. In conclusion, national polls consistently show approval higher than 71% for a change to national popular vote. Statewide polls show approval never lower than 68%, and 33 states show approval at 70% or higher, including 77% in Washington. This shows that the people of America want a change when it comes to electing our presidents. Whether it is a move to a national popular vote or a modified version of the Electoral College, something needs to be done. Presidential elections should be determined by national popular vote.